Hello everybody, it's MrMoCS and here we are on a nice Sunday afternoon. It's a bit different. I was in the process of making some art of a character for a thing we had just finished up in D&D. And I had a lot on my mind while I was doing it. I had a lot that I was thinking about, and I had a lot that I wanted to talk about, I guess. But, like, I didn't really have anybody I could talk to about it. Snooze at work, Chalk's in the process of doing his thing, Shy Guy's playing 7 days, and most everybody else I know is either asleep or off doing something in the moment of doing it. So I figured what I'm going to do is I'm going to show off what I've been up to. And then just kind of discuss some stuff. I've got more things I have to draw in the process, so it's all good. But, you know, I've been meaning to do a MrMoCS Talks About D&D and tell stories stream for a while. So, fuck it. Here we are. So let's get to the live scene. You'll see me in the process of actually finishing up a piece that I started about an hour ago or so. I've redrawn it like 3 times. And this armor-clad fellow here, well, I guess he's more like katana-clad fellow here, is a boy by the name of Sire Pride. I will not be turning on text-to-speech here, since the point of this is really just me to ramble about things. So, if you're expecting to hear Reader and the funny robot sounds, I do apologize, but you're not going to get that. So what's been on my mind? I have to be honest. The campaign that I assisted in, and have been assisting in for quite some time, maybe half a year, maybe more. I'm not entirely sure when my first session with them was. I wasn't doing a whole campaign. I was doing kind of like a DLC extra content kind of quest for a game that really was still in motion. It wasn't showing any signs of stopping. It had plenty of time and plenty of things still to do. Its own story was really well crafted, and it was pretty well put together. But I had something I wanted to do in that world, and I wanted to get it done. What was that, you might be wondering? Believe it or not, I came into this particular adventure with the intent of causing destruction. Now, you might think, oh my god, Mox, what the fuck? Dude, why do you want to go into someone else's D&D campaign that they put all this time and work into and just wreck some shit? And the answer is because of a story that I was told. And it's nothing against the DM. The DM actually did perfectly fine. It wasn't like it was out of disrespect or anything. In fact, the events that happened that led to this were fascinating. They were really cool. It was an odd moment. So, in our poor chemistry group, we are all really into D&D. And we are all really into D&D as a whole. Alright? So much so that our characters have kind of taken life in different ways. Some in a healthy direction, some in possibly an unhealthy direction. It's hard to really say. But they've all sprung a new lease on life. Even the ones whose campaigns are never gonna happen again. It's this little thing that we called Porkim City. Technically speaking, it's a lot of my fault that even exists. because I wanted to create a little space that we could tell stories that involve characters from other worlds and universes who would never, in most circumstances, actually meet each other, have the opportunity to do so, to have shenanigans, have things happen. It was kind of like a space outside of it, a what-if scenario, a hypothetical box that these characters were stuck in, but not in the way that I think some people who know what I'm talking about are thinking. It was a giant collaborative storytelling effort that's still ongoing. And any character we've ever made has a place in that city. Alright? They have their own lives, they do things, they meet people. There are characters from different universes who go to the same school. There are characters who are part monster and demon and angel and all sorts of nonsense. Flipping burgers and shit, you know? It's ridiculous. It's hilarious, but that's kind of the point. It's this giant, weird, collective whatever, alright? And amongst that, I have a character who's very storied. Since I've been with Poor Chemistry, I'd say that this character of mine is my oldest and most active, and their name is Ash Azure. Without really getting into it, because that's a long story that I really don't want to talk about today, Ash Azure is one of like 3 people who survived the collapse of an entire universe and survived an event that I think we're just calling the Void. I think, yeah, Void campaign. Where it was like a collapsing universe, and the people who existed ended up getting the power of creation, and their own minds could create things. Hi, Sylaps, I'm talking D&D things. As I said before, I'm not gonna have Reader going as I'm just ranting about things, but yeah. So Ash is one of those people who survived that. It was kind of wild. She ended up basically getting this little house, that if I remember correctly, we made in The Sims. That she went on to have storied things. But who needs a reader anyways? I like to have a reader. I like being able to just see or hear the comments as they come in. It kind of makes me feel like chat's right here with me. You are right here with me, Sileps. Mind, body, and spirit. But anywho, one of her mortal enemies, she ended up turning friends in Poor Chem City, which was wild. And that was actually one of Snoo's characters by the name of Tomb. A character whose entire purpose and existence is to kill her. Her and these other 2 survivors from this other world. Which is wacky and wild. Not my body isn't Canada or in the United States. Yeah, I know. But, you're here with me. With Reader, it's like you're here. It's like you're right in my ear, Silaps. Anywho. And from this weird series of events, Tomb and Ash ended up becoming kind of like a surrogate mother and child. It was very strange. Like, she was very maternal to him, and he ended up meeting him. Yep, Mox on a Sunday, and I'm talking D&D stories. I'm talking about some wild and crazy shit. The voice in the head is actually in your ear. Wow. Anywho, so with Tomb and Ash having these moments, Tomb would tell stories about things, about why he was in the state of mind and mood that he was in, or what was going on in the adventures in the world that he was trapped in. Well, trapped is being not generous. He's there because he wants to be, but he's not there forever. Once he's done basically fulfilling his end of a bargain, he's going to go and fulfill his actual duties, which is going to be killing Ash and her compatriots. But he doesn't want to do that. He's kind of stuck in a contract now. But one of these things that happened in this world that he told Ash is that one of their friends in this world that they were in was going to get executed. And that's pretty fucked up. Right? Tomb has a very unique ability in that if he dies, 24 hours after he dies, he just kind of respawns with none of his equipment or anything, and he goes and he can basically just go get his own shit from his dead body and go on with his life. The only caveat to that is he has this mask that he has to wear, and if he doesn't have that mask on for a certain amount of time, basically his lungs fill up with blood, and then something happens. We don't know what it is, but something bad happens to him. And that's bad. So him dying still sucks, and it's just not as bad as it could be. But it's still kind of a big deal for him to willingly choose to take the place of someone who's going to be sacrificed, basically. Executed in this case. And so another problem is that the guy who's going to be executed, whose place he's going to be taking, they had to do on the down low, and that guy was missing an arm. So what they did is, this group of adventurers took Tomb, who volunteered for this, chopped off his arm, and then had him take the place where he was publicly executed in front of an entire kingdom, while they escorted the other guy who was supposed to be executed out. I don't know why I'm stumbling over my words. Probably because I'm trying to draw while talk. It's tricky to wrap a rhyme that's right on time. It's tricky. Anywho, it ended up being pretty fucked up, and it ended up being fairly traumatizing. Yeah. And so in this weird pocket dimension where these characters who are from these different worlds can communicate to another, he told the story to Ash. And basically, to me, to an extent. And I didn't like that. And neither did the character. And so this idea started brewing. As more and more stories came to light about this particular kingdom, which was just called Human Kingdom. If it has an actual name, I never heard it. I just know it as Human Kingdom, okay? It just turns out that these guys are full of just terrible people. Giant racists, giant bigots, just all around bad dudes. And I thought, what if I could do something about that? And I started plotting. And I started plotting hard. And the next thing you know, I had this idea of creating an adventure. And in the course of that adventure, if the DM would allow me to create this, I would take Human Kingdom and raise it to the fucking ground. And so I came to the DM with an idea of basically hosting a separate adventure for the group that I would basically be in charge with, though with the caveat that it would be still their game. They have final say on everything. This is their show. I'm just a guest. They were okay with that. I was okay with that. And I started telling them what I had in mind. And to my surprise, they were down for it. Oh yeah, Project Genocide was go. Alright? Thing is, my DM style doesn't allow me to just do things without purpose or reason. I'm a stickler for trying to keep things thematic and appropriate. So if something happens that doesn't have any place or being or merit outside of random circumstance, I don't do it. So I had to justify every single thing I wanted to do in my own mind. Otherwise, I wasn't going to make a compelling story. And so what I came up with was this idea, based on the fact that the king was an aged and old man. That he was a dying aged and old man. And he had bastard heirs, which would be a problem if he was to suddenly just drop dead. Since there'd be a power vacuum, and if it ever came to light of these bastards, it could cause a whole revolution and all sorts of issues. And so he approached this group of adventurers, and I was like, hey, so you guys do shit good, you get stuff done, I'm dying, I don't know when it's gonna happen, you never know when it's gonna happen, and I have regrets. Can you go out and find these lost heirs of mine, okay? And while they didn't want to initially agree, they had some demands of their own, they did eventually come to agreement. Insert phase 1 of my plan. over in a part of the world, since the DM for this particular campaign has a world map for things, I looked it over and I asked about a couple of places on the map in the area of Human Kingdom that would be in proximity to each other enough that you could reasonably consider them part of the kingdom without it being too far to travel to, you know? I had to make it believable, but I had to make it remote enough that isolated incidents and things could happen and not let people know about it. And I found a spot over in a place taken over by Feywild. So it's basically, you want to think of a forest, magical forest, a bunch of fairies, a bunch of wild magic and things like that. And I took that and I made it evil. Oh my god, Mox, you're already starting to destroy things, and you just got here. Yeah, just you wait. There was a purpose to this, okay? Because it wasn't like it was just destroyed for nothing. The adventurers start traveling forth, and they start to realize that the forest, the very lively forest that they should be traveling into, is not as lively as they've been told. It's actually quite dead and eerie, and there's no signs of any animals or anything anywhere. It's devoid of life. It's devoid of sound. This air of ominous everywhere. And as they were passing a graveyard, they heard a commotion. Inside the graveyard is a person of importance, but their importance wouldn't become known until later. They found a funny-looking bard, a half-elf bard, clinging to the top of a grave in a graveyard, holding a goat, being attacked by skeletons. They came to his aid, and he was like, oh, thank goodness. And for some reason, I gave him a really bad French accent, so forgive me when I'm talking like him and you hear me go into it. Hello, my name is Raphael, and I have come here to the town of Radiance to experience grand times. God, I'm not even doing his accent properly. Whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm going to try and get it, but you get the idea. And they're like, oh, okay, any idea why everything's fucked up like this? No. I am afraid that this is too much for me. I am unfamiliar with any of this. They got closer and closer to the town that they were getting to, where they found it, but the people inside of this town were odd. They were not exactly responsive to conversation. They weren't really responsive to their presence in this place. And all around, there was just this air of mystery. Until one of these villagers broke out a sword and started attacking the players. Then all of the villagers broke out weapons and started attacking the players. If you ever played Resident Evil 4, you can think of it as like that starting village scene. And what ended up becoming was a desperate means of survival, as they quickly figured out that these people weren't people anymore. They stabbed into them with their weapons, and instead of it being this thunk into a fleshy being, it was like sliding a knife into clay. They didn't bleed. They didn't have organs. They were like soft clay models of humans. And these weapons they were wielding weren't just swords. They had these barbs and teeth on the end of them, made with the intention to cause as much damage as they could possible. And every time they landed a blow with their weapons, the swords would begin to drain the very blood from their bodies within the wounds, filling it into the weapon. Well, that's not very good. That's not very kosher. In the process, the group of heroes ended up taking refuge inside of a church of a fey goddess named Tatiana. Or you can think of it as like the queen of the fairies. It's not too far off, son of a bitch. I forgot to draw his finger over here because it's supposed to be up and over. Oopsies. I got distracted with my storytelling. Anywho. So they're in this church, and Chalk's character, who's like the de facto leader of this group, is like, I have an idea. And so he climbed to the top of the church where that great bell was, and knocked the fucking bell over onto a bunch of these dudes. Okay? So that was cool. A swift wind came through and seemed to dispatch most of the others. Mysterious. The ones that didn't die turned and faced this grand fountain in the center of town. And they began to approach it, and the fountain slid forward, revealing a great ancient path that led deep into the ground. And just the aroma of death erupted from this place. Not good. Bad signs, bad juju, you know? But it was kind of the only way to go, and curiosity kills the cat, you could say. So the adventurers followed behind, where they found that these people, these clay people, were depositing the blood of these weapons into a great pool that was then being vacuumed up through a series of pipes somewhere deeper into this cavern. Raphael and his goat ended up triggering a bomb and blowing themselves up. They didn't die, but they did get messed up and weren't able to continue on with the rest of the adventure. Deep in these caverns, they also found abominations, you could say. Think a mimic. I think most people are familiar with the concept of a mimic, okay? But the mimic is a person. Okay? They're a person who is chained and bound to a wall. Their eyes are covered and they look like they're in distress, because they are. But that's the trap. As they got closer to try and free them, the center of these mimic people, like just to give a quick idea, like, let's say we have, just a quick little thing. We have, a body. Okay. We have a chest here. Okay. The chest would open up into a series of razor-sharp, teeth, as well as an incredibly sticky substance, and it would lunge out at you like a starfish's stomach, grasp onto you, and start to try and digest you. All the while, there are these bound and crying people because it's a fucked up thing. Oh yeah, it's terrible. But that was the point. The point is that these were unnatural, terrible things. Someone's doing bad shit, is what that's supposed to tell you. And the group fell for it, but they also got out of it pretty easily because the thing was stuck on a wall, essentially. From there, they ended up finding that this passageway actually led into the manor of this count that they had been told was in charge of it, a man by the name of Count Dean. Things were not looking good. Something happened to this village. There were abominations of people. They haven't found any sign of the heir. And it wasn't looking good for the heir. I'll tell you that much. So their hopes of finding a living person at this point weren't great. They then stepped into the ruins of what was effectively Count Dean's Manor. And in Count Dean's Manor, they found more abominations and more signs of things that had gone wrong. And they also found two eyeball-like keys in the process, before finding Dean's main room at the top of a tower, locked off by some magic gate, but two slots that looked like about the shape of an eyeball laid on the side. Didn't take them long to figure out, oh, these keys go to unlocking this. Cool. Opening inside, they found a lab where Count Dean was working on some kind of table. Various scientific instruments splayed all over the place as he was cutting into something fleshy and meaty, wiping sweat from his brow with a stained crimson hand. I forgot to mute my phone. They approached him. And just like, hey, Count Dean, is that you? And he's like, I have no interest in visitors, but if you want to be useful, here. He threw them a knife. There's a bucket in the corner. And they look at the bucket and it is just full of blood and flesh. And they're like, yeah, that's no good. Then looking over past him, there was a cage. And slumped against the back, barely breathing, they could make out the shape of a woman. And they all kind of made a bet of, that's probably the person we're looking for. A fight ensues. This is a group of adventurers against basically a dude, a scientist, okay? It doesn't go well for him. They kick his ass. If only that was where it lied. Dean's experiments had given him the ability to infect himself with some sort of necrotic transformation. And from here, his body ended up intertwining with the very stone walls that they were in and created basically a wall of flesh. Various body parts would spring out and attack them. A mouth, a giant maw, opened in the center of the room, trying to consume everything that could fall into it. And a great eye watched them from the distance. Every so often, when it would take damage, the whole room would shudder as if it was in an earthquake, causing great damage to the people inside of it. And the reason I'm saying all of this is because the first major change of my campaign, my DLC adventure in this, happened here because something unexpected happened. Tomb, Snoo's character Tomb, the one who was technically responsible for all this, but at the time they weren't aware of it, selflessly jumped into the cage and took the brunt of all of the damage that this person was going to take. Now, I'll tell you right now, they were never gonna die. I was never gonna just have it be like, oh, you went through this whole thing and unfortunately the person you were trying to save perished in the battle. How tragic. Because that's fucked up. I'm not cool with that. I'm not okay with that. I want if there's gonna be a losing condition like that, I want you to have a chance to stop it. And considering I never even fathomed the idea of them not being able to save this person, I didn't even play with the idea. But to my surprise, this very selfish character went out of his way for this complete stranger. And you could probably chalk it up initially to a professional courtesy of, I don't get paid if they die. And you're probably right to a degree. But what followed it was something even stranger. But I'll get to that in a second. But just keep in mind, the entire time this fight was going on, Tomb was basically getting the shit kicked out of him like a hero. I'm very proud of the boy for this. Alright? I want that to be clear. They then defeated this wall of flesh, and the Count returned to his self. And he's gasping, and they're like, you son of a bitch, how could you do this? Blah, 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 blah. When from the doorway that they had entered, a black arrow flew through the room, striking him straight in the heart, killing him. They turned around and began to chase after whoever fired that arrow, but unfortunately, by the time they got around the corner, this individual had vanished. So, any questions that they had that they wanted to have answered, unfortunately died along with the Count. But with the heir in tow, as they found a birthmark resembling that of a lion on her, they had found their person and were ready to get out of there. During their travels, again, to my surprise, Tomb took it upon himself to take care of her wounds. He dressed and cleaned them every day, got defensive when anybody got even close to them for fear of an attempt on their life, even though a lot of the people who were there were people that were his friend, that he trusts. Yet he was acting very odd, very protective. It's very strange, I thought. That's very peculiar. Also in the course of this, of assessing her wounds, he made a very terrible discovery. This poor soul in the cage during their time there had been, well, to put it lightly, they had their vocal cords removed. And to put it, to stop them from screaming from the other terrible things that were being performed on them. So imagine their shock to that, knowing that they were going to have to present this as, "Hello, King, here is your child in this terrible fucking condition." Fuck, you know? Oh, God. Getting back to the capital, they had mostly taken care of her condition besides the whole vocal cord thing, which unfortunately meant that she would never be able to utter a word again. She'd never be able to speak. And after meeting with the king, they had her taken to the infirmary where the king's physicians and things were going to take care of her. Again, something weird happened. Tomb didn't trust this, and he snuck away from everybody to go and spy on her to make sure that nobody was doing any funny business, to make sure nobody was hurting her. He was dead set that somebody in this castle was going to come out of nowhere and just assassinate her in her weakened condition. Maybe it's his own trauma that's acting it out. Maybe it was something else. I don't know. But he did find her. And all he was able to do was take a quick look in a mirror before or through a window into the infirmary before he was apprehended by the castle guards and escorted out of the castle. What he didn't know is as he was being pulled away, she saw him. And she took note of that. Because in her mind, in between fading in and out of consciousness from her condition, she vaguely remembered his face, but then seeing it through the window solidified that actually happened. This guy actually saved me. She didn't associate it with anybody else. The only person she saw was Tomb. And it was here I was like, oh, we got something. We have organic storytelling. Tomb just made himself a hero. Not just a hero, but a personal hero in this girl's eyes. Alright? Which is great, but it's so weird. It's counter to his entire character, this very grungy assassin who comes from a place where you're sooner to die and be robbed by the people around you than be friends with them. It's a very odd thing for this character, I thought. But I was very interested in it. There was a lot of downtime. There was a couple of months of downtime between the regular game that this was going on and my next set of adventure that I had to plan out and ready. And while that was happening, I decided that the princess was sending correspondence to Tomb. So imagine his surprise when he gets home at their guild, as they were a guild called Molten Rose, which I believe is actually what the campaign itself is called. It's Molten, like lava, Rose. A Molten Rose. That's their guild name. But you can imagine his surprise when he got a letter from her. He was asking personal questions and things. And he responded. And they went back and forth a couple of times before the last letter that he received, he refused to open out of fear. He was afraid of getting close to her. He was afraid of getting attached to her. And he was afraid because he knew that this was temporary. When this campaign finishes, Tomb is going to leave this world, and he's going to go to the world he's supposed to be to perform the job of what he's supposed to do, which is be the villain of a campaign. So he doesn't want to get attached to anybody in this place. And here is this person trying to become his friend. Very at ends with himself. Very at ends with the whole situation. It was cute. Well, the time finally came for my next adventure, and I decided that this next one was going to be a murder mystery. Instead of it being a, you go there, you kick in the door, you fight a bunch of stuff, and then you get loot and get out of there, I wanted this one to be more focused on roleplay. And that's exactly what it was. So, the king has been invited to a celebration over in the Arctic North, in the northern parts of the human kingdom. A old generational family that is in charge of basically one of the oldest distilleries on the planet was having a celebration, basically celebrating their times and their ages. And the king was invited to go, but he wasn't able to really do so in his current condition. However, the new princess, the heir to the land, who is not currently fit for it, but is, the only heir that's currently around, accepted it in his stead. And she wanted the group of Molten Rose to escort her to this place. It's dangerous traveling on the roads, after all. Tomb was asked by name to be a part of it, so he didn't have a choice. The leader of this group, Charlotte, aka Chalk's character, actually chose not to go there on their own stead, and instead, they brought along a character by the name of Momo, who is a ghost genie who lives in a sword. They're cursed to the sword. Okay, that's their deal. We've done with this a lot faster than I was telling stories, but it is what it is. So they get to the north, and Tomb and Kyrie, which is her name, by the way. Her name is Kyrie. I don't think I actually said any of that. They kind of have these awkward silences amongst each other. They both want to talk to each other, but they can't find the words. Everybody in the group notices this. People think it's cute. They get to this place in the north where they find a festival going on, and everyone breaks off into their own thing to do some stuff. Some of the people go and take the stagecoach that they were traveling in and park it over actually at the royal manor in the distance. Some people go enjoy the festivities in the town, one of which actually being Momo, who went out of their way to carve a ice statue, actually of Tomb, entered in an ice carving contest and won. Oh, when when they got there, and at the front gate of this place was the winning ice statue in celebration, and it was him, but it was really buff for some reason. He was like staring at it like, what the fuck is this? What is this? Who did this? Why? It was really funny. While they were getting acquainted, a blizzard started to blow. So everyone took shelter in either their homes or the manor if they were invited as guests, which the group was as the escorts for the princess. Cue this motherfucker. This motherfucker right here. Alright? This man's name is Sire Pride. Straight up. And he is following them. More importantly, though, he is following Tomb. Why is he following Tomb? He is the adoptive son of the nobles that reside at this manor. And he is pretty much this town's main protector from all of the main dangers that live in the frozen north. So he doesn't want anything bad to go down, and he doesn't want anybody to do anything stupid. So Tomb, who is this pasty, dark-eyed rogue with a bad attitude, naturally sets off his, this guy's gonna start shit alarms, and starts to follow him. which leads to a hilarious interaction where he's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And he's like, "Call me sire." And the guy's like, "Oh my," it seems like, "Oh my god, you're full of yourself." He's like, "No, that's actually my name, sire. Call me sire." Festivities ensue. Everybody's hanging out. I'm keeping an eye on things because there is a secret event, basically, where there is a special set of alcohol that is brewed by these people that is the strongest alcohol on Earth, called Fey wine. I believe it was something like Fey wine or something like that, okay? It is naturally cold. You do not need to preserve it or store it. It's kept cold on its own through its own process. And boy, is it potent. So I'm keeping an eye out for who's drinking, because I'm adding them to a list. And I said that this was a murder mystery. And basically, whoever's name I drew from a hat, from whoever drank, was going to be the primary suspect of the murder. Not that they're the one who did it. I want that to be clear. But it's that it was going to be looked as if they were the one and being blamed for what was going to happen that night. Speaking of that night, fucking nobody of the group drinks. Except for Shy Guy's character. Now, Shy Guy is playing a goblin. He's playing a goblin sorcerer, if I remember correctly. I keep wanting to say cleric, but they're not a cleric. They're a sorcerer, I have to remind myself. By the name of Fen. I believe their body shape is something like this. So you got like the goblin head, and you got their ears, and they've got their hair, and things like that, you know. And I think they have like poofy hair or something like that. They got their little neck. And then, as he would describe it, they have these giant Bahanaga hooves, little waist, big butt, and then they got their legs. This is Fen in a nutshell, as a goblin. And they are our friends. They are a pacifist. They do not hurt people. Their magic is mostly support, because the other bits that aren't support are like healing and ways to escape. Fen doesn't fight. Badonkers! And of all the people who is gonna be blamed for a fucking murder mystery was the pacifist goblin. And they were the only name in the hat, so they were the only one I was gonna draw. And I remember thinking that was the funniest fucking thing in the world. So Fen drinks. Fen ends up actually meeting with the entire group of the Prides. The Prides are the people who actually live at this place. Which, I'm gonna say, there's a giant lion motif between all of these missions. You have Sire himself. You have Richard Pride. Why is he named Richard? It's so that I could call him Dick Pride. You have the matriarch of the family, whose name was Lady Pride. And then they had their daughter, whose name was Prinny Pride, named after the Prinnies from Disgaea, and also because I thought it would be funny if they were all just kind of like weird little title things. So Prinny as a little nickname, pen name for princess. So you have Sire, Prinny, Lady, and Dick, the Prides. Anywho, so Fen ends up becoming very friendly with Richard Pride, and the two of them basically go around. He's like Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist, if you know that. He's just this big, beefy guy who's just all passion, all burning passion, and does everything 100% or 0%. If he's not 100%, he isn't doing it, kind of thing. And she's just this idiot goblin who just wants to be friends with things, and they were cute together. It was great. During this, there's an introduction of Kyrie, the princess, who they escorted here, who introduces herself to everybody. Remember, she's mute, so she can't actually talk. And while she's out there, her scar on her neck begins to glow, as well as her birthmark, which is in the shape of a lion. And she ends up letting out this roar. And a shit ton of people, including members of the group, stop what they're doing, and they begin, like, bowing and making praise to her. Nobody's quite sure what it was. After all, she can't talk. She doesn't have vocal cords. So what the fuck? And that's actually what Toon spends his evening doing, is basically going to Kyrie. And he ends up spending the night in Kyrie's room. Like a dumbass, completely, again, not even thinking about what he's doing. Oh my god. It's funny. The night comes. In the night, Fen is drunk, and they black out. They ended up wandering down the halls, being kind of sad and pathetic. And Lady Pride finds them and decides to take them in, and takes them to basically their quarters for the evening. During the night, something happens. And when the morning comes, and the little goblin wakes up, they find they are in a blood-soaked bed, as Lady Pride is dead in her bed with a black arrow sticking out of her spine. Oh shit. Oh fuck. Oh shit. Oh fuck. Oh shit. Oh fuck. Cue Sire showing up, being like, oh my god, my mom's dead. You goblin, explain yourself. And like, no, I didn't do it. And everyone else in the group is like, yeah, they didn't do it. They couldn't have done it. They're a pacifist. It's like, yeah, sure. I'll believe that, as they're covered in my mom's fucking blood. And they're like, no. Okay, you know what? Tell you what. Let's gather clues. You can basically stick with us, and we will prove our comrade's innocence. He's like, you know what? Sure, fine. But if you can't find the proof of it, I am going to personally make sure that they face justice. Because that's the kind of person he is. Through their investigations, they determine that it could not have been the goblin. But now there's this bigger mystery of who actually done it. And more importantly, this is that same arrow, or the same kind of arrow, that killed the Count in the last adventure. So the entire group is now aware that, okay, the same guy who did that is now here. Oh shit. We need to figure out who this is. Now there is one other thing I would like to mention, because I feel like I should bring it up. My mind's all scatterbrained, so I did fail to mention it before. But there is another person at this party. For some reason, Raphael is also here from the previous mission. He's just a dude to them, so it's very strange. However, they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about, oh no, who could have done this? Alright? They end up finding something peculiar in this place. They find that all of the rooms to the Prides are connected by secret hallways. And in the center is a giant ancient sacrificial room with runes that would prevent ghosts from passing on to the afterlife, and an altar where the sacrifices themselves were made. There is dust all over this place, so no one's been in there in God knows how long, but there are signs that someone had been in there not too long ago, as the dust had been cleared, checking all of the rooms. They also find Sire Pride's room. Inside of this room, they find tapestries of various fey creatures and maidens on his wall. He has various swords on his wall. He has books of poetry and novels, basically like comics. And they discover that Sire Pride is a giant weeb. The equivalent of like somebody who is interested in, anime and stuff like that is somebody who's interested in the Fey works, I found out from the DM. So, boy, was there a lot of laughter at this discovery of this man and his weebness. Oh yeah. While everyone else is prancing around, he was mastering the sword. He has his waifus. He has his favorite fae. And he reads haikus. It's fucking hilarious. He's not as as much of a hard ass as he looks. Did I also mention that he's a dark elf? He's a dark elf in a human kingdom, with a kingdom of people who are pretty racist. And yet everyone around here respects him. There's a reason. This motherfucker is strong. He is stupid strong. Not only is he strong, his sword is redonkulous. It is a weapon called a Phantom Blade Katana. And the Phantom Blade Katana, let me go and find this because I think it's relevant. Phantom Blade. Oh, it's called the Phantom Katana. For one, he gets a +4 on all of his attacks, because it's a magic weapon, which is cool. It has an ability called Honed Edge, which allows it to cut through any non-magical material. So when he hits a non-magical object, his weapon does triple damage. As a bonus action, he can teleport behind a creature up to 60 feet around him. And until the start of his next turn, he has advantage on his attack rolls against that creature. He has a thing called Quick Slash, where when he hits a creature with his weapon, he may immediately make another attack as a bonus action. And at the start of his turn, a illusionary ghost of him appears in where he was standing. That lasts until the end of his next turn, and as a bonus action, he can just teleport to where it is. That is all things that his sword lets him do. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, I based his ass off of Virgil from Devil May Cry, but gave him some more personality, in my opinion. And so that's how we wound up with this. That's not... That sacrifice room is not the only odd thing they find in this manor. That none of the prides were aware of. They also find that there is a secret floor above them. Above the second floor. That has basically like a one-way mirror. That from anybody who's on the other side, they look up and they just kind of see a reflective ceiling. But for those who are on the top, they can look down and spy on people inside of their rooms. They also find a bunch of cursed artifacts up there, including a duck that haunts them. Specifically, it ends up haunting Tomb. It's just like follows them around quacking to no end. Odd and ridiculous. Oh yeah, creepy. It's supposed to be. Perverts. Well, I wouldn't say it was because of that. It's more nefarious than that. But it's not the Pride's fault. The Prides are completely unaware of any of this, so this is all news to them. Now, I mentioned that the Goblin was a sorcerer. However, they had access to holy magic and clerical magic. And they actually had an ability that would allow them to resurrect somebody who had died. They're not the perverts. Yeah, they're not the perverts. Unfortunately, it required them to have a diamond worth a certain amount. Now, that shouldn't be a problem. They're in a noble house, except whoever may have fired this arrow apparently also robbed them, because all of their jewelry was gone. So that becomes a problem. While all this was happening, a group of people, like servants and various guards around the area, were basically digging through the snow from the previous night's blizzard. They end up bringing attention to the entire group that they found a body outside, buried in the snow. It was somebody who was missing from the guest list. A very strange and shady-looking man who they assumed was the murderer. It doesn't help as well that on his person was a bunch of royal jewelry that had been stolen from this family. Taking account of it, they found a diamond well enough, and they went and resurrected Lady Pride. Hooray! The murder mystery is now sort of irrelevant because the victim is now back. They then used another ability called communicate with dead or talk with dead or something like that. and they talk to the person who they assume to be the murderer. However, he claims he didn't do it. He was there to rob them for sure, but he wasn't there to commit murder. So they're out on a person. They still don't know who did it, but everything's kind of fine, so they're just kind of keeping an eye out for things. That's when another bomb gets dropped on the group. As Kyrie gets Toon's attention and lets him know that she's learned something very interesting. Sire Pride here has the royal markings on his back. Sire Pride is actually an heir of the kingdom. The king had an affair with a drow, a dark elf. Sire Pride, although there's nothing wrong with him, simply because of his appearance and his race, is not fit for the crown. That doesn't stop him from being a noble. Adopted son, real heir, oh dear. So when the group asks him to go with them back to the castle, he thinks he's there to protect the princess. They never actually tell him until they get to the gates why they brought him with. So imagine his shock and surprise, basically in front of the front door to the castle of, hey dude, by the way, you're actually the son of the king of this kingdom. So that's fun. So Kyrie and Sire Pride ended up being step-siblings. And so the two of them stay at the castle, and some time passes. Next mission completed. Hooray. Now, I mentioned before that my entire plan during all of this was to raise Human Kingdom to the fucking ground. That's still my plan, but you remember, I've got to make a story of it. I can't just do it without purpose. So the next mission comes around, and the king is getting worse. Mock's art stream, pog, yeah. I'm also telling the story about my DLC adventure. I've been talking a lot about Toon, since he was very heavily involved in the whole thing. So the king's not taking a turn for the worse. He's not dead, but he is dying. He's getting worse in his condition. And he caught wind of the next heir. They are in a place not too far from Radiance. However, the heir refuses to leave their town unless their town gets aid. So Molten Rose gets hired basically to go and escort some guards with a bunch of resources with them so that they can go and collect the heir. So they travel back to Radiance. Well, near Radiance. Where they find a very small hamlet. Where they are greeted by a makeshift militia of local villagers. And are told that the person who's in charge around there is a cleric by the name of Sister Mary. When they go and find Sister Mary in the church, who's healing a bunch of wounded people, she confronts them and tells them, yeah, I'm the one that was in contact with the king on this whole thing, so you're the people who are supposed to escort me back to the castle. The king did not tell her that she was an heir. So these guys have to, unfortunately, break the news to her, much to her shock and surprise. However, they actually forgot to do so until later. In a really bad time, but we'll get to that later. Night begins to approach. And... sweat. They realize that the problem that's happening to this town that they needed the support with is that the undead that were brought upon because of Count Dean are a problem still. And every night, this village is besieged by hordes of undead. And the militia is doing their best they can, but Sister Mary is pretty much the only thing keeping this town from being overrun. which is why she was reluctant to leave. Because if she did, there's no chance that her town would survive without her. So together, they all fight off the hordes of the undead, and Mary ends up pushing herself beyond, finally succumbing to the exhaustion that she had built up all during this time. Exhaustion is a real thing that can happen in D&D, and it is a killer. She pushed herself too hard, basically. With the night saved, the fortifications taken care of with the assistance of the group, they are now ready to make their preparations to leave. Okay, I'm just on 10, so I'll see you when I get home. Love you too, Snoop. I'm gonna keep telling these stories. So they start to head home. They get about a day's worth away from the capital, when suddenly a massive wave of green light explodes from the capital. The sky darkens, and just the sensation of evil and dread suffocates the air around them. Something bad just happened. They eventually gaze over, and they find that Human Kingdom is on fire. There are swarms of undead birds flying over the top of the castle. Abominations and monsters and demons are attacking the village and the people within. Things are bad. Things have gotten very bad. Hello, Chuck. I'm talking about my DLC adventure while I draw Sire Pride. Because I was drawing him and I realized I had a lot I wanted to talk about this. And how wild everything was. They pretty much go, oh, fuck, this is a problem. And by the way, at this point, they still haven't told Mary she's an heir. They quickly rectify that and it's like, oh yeah, did you know why we brought you? And she's like, I assume because of that. And they're like, no, you're actually royalty. It's like, the fuck do you mean I'm royalty? Yeah, you're actually royalty. Okay. Well, then I guess I have a job to do. They end up making a plan where everyone of the group is going to be making it into the castle through the front gate, where they're going to be looking for survivors and battling the hordes of the undead. Except for Tomb. Tomb, upon seeing this place in the state of disarray it is, starts to panic. Because he's worried about Kyrie. This idiot decides he's going to activate these boots he has, these rocket boots, with a couple other things on himself to give himself just massive speed, and flies off as fast as he can to try and get to the capital. During that time, he A, flies into a flock of undead birds that shred him, crashes into a roof and nearly kills himself, and then has an axe thrown into his back from a monster. Before finally making it to the front gates, almost dead. The rest of the group goes through in a carriage, basically systematically destroying the demons and undead that go through there, finding a group of survivors holed up inside of an inn that they actually used to frequent, before finally making their own ways to the front gate as well. Where they get to the front gate, and they find a person that they're not on good terms with. A paladin who had been previously a high-end, I can't remember quite how high he was, but he was like the king's right-hand man for getting shit done. Remember how I mentioned that they had demands previously? One of these demands was that this guy lost his rank and privileges as a soldier, and the king accepted it. So he's not on good terms with the group either. But in this moment, he doesn't care because his kingdom is under siege. Fuck. Uh-oh. So they make an uneasy agreement with each other that they're going to take care of this because they all have the same goals. And they go further into the castle. They find all sorts of more terrible and bad things. They find the throne room. And the throne room's entrance has this black cloud in front of it, full of screaming skulls and horrible things. They end up pressing a flower into it just to kind of test it, and the flower dies instantly, melting into a puddle of goop. And they're like, that's a problem. We probably shouldn't touch that, which is a good reason. They should not have touched it, and I'm glad they didn't. I think someone scoops up a bottle of the stuff at some point. Anywho. They are looking around for the heirs, and they find a boarded and barricade off corner, which led to a set of stairs, where they find signs of battle, as well as a group of survivors in this top area. According to them, Sire Pride and Kyrie had been there, but they left to try and find survivors and haven't been seen since. While exploring the royal rooms, they find an odd sight in the king's room. There's this glass case, like the one you could think of from Beauty and the Beast, that he houses his rose in. But inside of it is that same kind of darkness. They pick it up, get the darkness out, and they find that there's this light inside. And that light burns away the barriers of whatever this terrible shit is. Everyone kind of readies their shit, and Sister Mary and Tomb have a little heart-to-heart chat as she basically tells him to calm his shit, snap out of it, and stop doing stupid things, and they make a promise to each other to not die. It's really sweet. They make their way into the throne room, where they find a monstrous version of the king sitting at his throne. He lifts his hand and basically kills this paladin instantly. The group fights. It's a harrowing fight, but they end up defeating him. And as he is dying, and they're about ready to really finish him off, from the entryway, just like the first time, an arrow flies through, nails him in the heart. This time when they turn, they see who's responsible. It's Raphael. And they're like, the fuck? I believe Chalk's character's thing, one of it was like, you have like, what is it, a minute to explain yourself or something. And he's like, alright, look, I have a job to do, things are what they are, I have business, hold on. He holds up his hand, and Sister Mary gets encased. You give him like 10 seconds, yeah. Sister Mary gets encased in an orb and flutters forward and ends up landing in his hand. He then whips out a card and goes, here's my card, take it, I'm going off to a place, details are on the card, peace, and he leaves. They try to chase after him, but just like the previous time, he just vanishes. The card explains that he's going to be waiting somewhere for them, and they have a week to basically prep themselves to do what they want. After that week, and however long else afterwards, whenever they're ready, they can choose to activate the card, which will teleport them to Raphael's location. However, if they so choose to not pursue this, they can decline the invitation, and basically they will never see Raphael or these heirs again, and all of the problems associated with them will also disappear. So it's basically, you can either come after us and finish this mission, or you can choose to forego it, and it's no longer your problem. Tomb's not going to let this go. Tomb is so attached to Kyrie, and he can't even fucking deny it. As much as he wants to, he can't. So, they spend their time prepping before finally gathering all of the people who are going to be there, which was a big group of people. And they activate the card and find themselves wandering through a fog before appearing some distance away. And it's here that I pull a nasty little trick specifically on Snoo and Chalk. Everyone else in this group has no fucking idea where they are. After a little bit of wandering, Chalk and Snoo figure out exactly where they are, as I have teleported their asses to a location from a different campaign entirely. Sorry, I'm taking a drink of water. They are at a place that's called the Hamlet. It has some very unique properties to it. There is a path that leads to the left and right of the town, and each of them end in a wall of fog. And if you step through one path into the fog, you will appear on the other side through the fog, and vice versa. They're on a cliffside. If you jump off into the water, it will actually push you through the water, and you will appear on the complete opposite end of the Hamlet, cliffside, flying through the air, basically carrying the momentum you had when you went down. This place is frozen in time. All of these signs and things of where they had been and what it had been like when they had last left it are there. And it was fucking hilarious. As Snoo figured it out fairly quickly, it took Chalk a bit. And the entire time, Snoo is just like making this kind of expression at him. It's like, hold on. So like, you have Snoo here. Alright? And they're like, they're like doing one of these. To Chalk. And he just doesn't get it. He's just like staring at Snoo, like, why are you looking at me like that? And then it dawns on him later when Shy Guy's character jumps off one of the cliffs and starts going up and down exactly where they are. And they both start making these expressions at each other like Snoo. Oh my god, it was priceless. Holy shit, it was so funny. They also find a old machine that I put in there as a reward with the DM's permission, called an alchemeter, which I'm not gonna say I stole it from Homestuck, because I absolutely stole it from Homestuck. But there's purpose to it. I did it because of Snoo. Because Snoo wanted that for that previous campaign, and I brought it back for the specific thing. So it allowed them to actually take their magic items and condense them into singular magic items. So they were combining their things together to get the effects and things of their things together. It was a good time. That took a good while. They spent like a session and then in between a week of a session figuring out the stuff they wanted to make, and then they made it. Here they step through these various buildings, each one pertaining to one of the locations and one of the heirs. They have a one-on-one with Count Dean, Count Damien. Damien. Why do I keep saying Dean? Sorry about that. Count Damien. Count Damien is his name. They have a run-in with Count Damien while he was sane. and they actually basically speak to his spirit, where they learn that he did not intend to do the things he did. I'm also trying to figure out what color I want to make his coat. I haven't figured that out yet, and I really should have, but I haven't figured out what color I want to make his coat. Maybe I'll make it purple like him. Anywho, that he was just a dude until a man in a red coat gave him some knowledge about this blood power, and he started studying it, and then it consumed him, and that's what drove him mad. He went to atone for his sins and basically assisted the group in finding the first heir, but instead of finding the heir, they found a statue. They were in like this little catacomb with a bunch of flowers and things, the statue of the heir. There was also a wall on the back that looked like rippling water, and on the other side was Raphael. They had a conversation where they were asking him questions, he was responding to things, and as they went to leave, Tomb suddenly had a vision that he was in a void-like place, which caused him to panic, as he has a fear of the void. And he had an encounter with Kyrie, who could talk. And she basically asked him some questions, said that, you know, this is terrible, but she has faith that he will save her. And while she doesn't have a lot that she can offer, she handed him a quill called a compass quill that will point in the direction of another compass quill. Reason being for that is that Raphael had the other compass quill. So it was going to guide them basically to Raphael. They go into the next one, where they find a similar structure to the manor, that then leads them to the sacrifice room, where they have another conversation with Raphael. Then the ghost swordswoman has a vision of Sire Pride. They have a little bit of an argument. He tries to draw his weapon, but he finds he's unable to. And realizing that he's not in a good enough state to do anything in his current condition, he offers his sword to Momo. And she takes it with the intention of giving it back to him once it's all said and done. Which then proceeds to Chuck getting the stats and numbers of this sword and going, "Fuck! It's better than mine!" Oh, I thought that was funny. I thought that was really funny. I believe one of the phrases that was uttered was, "Where the fuck did he get this?" And the answer was the Frozen North. They then end up in a church, and then they end up in a cathedral, where they talk to the king. Where they find out that the king wasn't exactly all there. He wasn't 100% when he was given a deal from Raphael. However, he wasn't quick to accept it. He was actually from pressuring from the likes of his kingdom, from the likes of that paladin that the group hated, that spurred him to move forward. And they didn't realize the power that they were actually dealing with. And it was that hubris that ended up leading to the destruction of Human Kingdom. The entire point of why I did this. Where at which another player character who was there by the name of Asami ended up having a vision of Sister Mary, who gave them a potion that they proceeded to not use and forget they even had. I was really disappointed in that because it was a really good potion. I think they did end up using it during the fight, but like at a really inopportune time to like miss the benefits of it. It was really sad. Anywho, they then entered the dramatic final area, a cathedral, a large church, where there was a statue of Tatiana and a broken statue of a hooved figure. They enter, and they find the place lit up with thousands of candles everywhere in various states of melting. At the back end, behind a gated wall, was Raphael, standing there, waiting for them, hands pressed on a cane, a massive coffin behind him, and two large statues, one depicting a regular woman holding up the building, and the other one depicting a horned woman holding up the building. To which the fight ensued, and holy shit, it was a fight. I don't want to go into the full details of the fight, but I'm pretty proud of it. Raphael put the hurt on this group, but they put the hurt on him too. It was a intense thing. The action economy is a bitch. That's all I'm gonna say. But in the end, the group did beat him. Where he activated the power of these heirs that he had collected into himself. Transforming into a lion-human hybrid, he then fought into them, and there would have been more to this fight if during the bit of it, it hadn't gotten so late that the DM was messaging me being like, hey, how much longer is this going to take? And I was like, okay, fine, we'll speed this up. When a third party, who was another character of mine who did have affiliations with the group prior and ended up actually having a role in this, by the name of Power Paladin, who, as a quick thing, imagine if Terry Crews from the Old Spice commercials was a paladin and an orc, and that's Power Paladin. Anywho, he comes careening through the ceiling into Raphael as this lion hybrid, and knocks the lion right out of his ass. Where he's lying there dying in this crater. The group approaches him, and they're like, you're done, where's the heirs? And he's like, well, I'll tell you where the heirs are. They're alright. But we have a problem here, and you don't really get a say on this. So, if you want to save the heirs, you're gonna have to kill me. But, if you want, I can give you the power that all of these heirs had inside of themselves. Alright? The power to control entire armies. The power of actual power to fight said armies on your own. Limitless vitality. And, well, there were a bunch of other bells and whistles he didn't get into because I was pressed for time. They were being pushed, basically, to try and accept the bargain. Which I found out later, they were tempted. They thought about it. They actually hesitated for a bit. There's a good reason for it. The group, before all of this, is currently in a state where all of the gods are at war, and the gods are starting to die. They are trying to find and defeat one in particular, the god Apep, and they're having some difficulties figuring out how to actually deal with his ass. So the opportunity to get this much power might be what they needed to go and achieve their goals. Which is exactly why they were being pressured with it. However, they chose to not accept it. And that's fine, because it means it's going to have to kill him. When they're asking, like, alright, how do you want it? He's like, well, you know, before we do that, I have a little bit of business I have to take care of. And he looks over at Tomb. And he lifts one of his hands up and waves Tomb's gun. Tomb had ended up dropping his gun during the fight, and Raphael had picked it up and actually shot him with it. And he still had Tomb's gun. He's waving it at him like, I still have this. So Tomb goes over to grab it, and as he does, he realizes Raphael has slipped something into his hand. Looking at it, it's one of these arrowheads. During the fight, while they were beating his ass and he was beating theirs, they were interrogating him and asking him questions about all of these things. And I'm not talking about it because, for the sake of all of this, it doesn't matter. Maybe after I'm done with this talk about it, I will get into those nitty-gritty details. But for now, it doesn't matter. What matters is that those arrows have the ability to actually seal these bloodline powers away. And they learned that during the fight. So when he slips Tomb this arrow, one would think, oh, he's trying to help me with this. Tomb did not get that. Tomb did not get that impression. And was initially going to be like, alright, I'm going to slit your throat. And it's like, well, fuck. I guess things aren't going to go according to how it's going to be, or how it was supposed to be. Then Tomb picked up what he was putting down, and then jammed it right into him. He dies in a fabulous display of blood, and these baubles, these things, like what Sister Mary was in when he kidnapped her, fly over to the coffin and descend into it. Then, from behind the stained glass, this ball of tar just crashes through. And before them is the person who's actually behind it all. Or should I say, the god behind it all. Baphomet. Who was actually his benefactor. The person who put Raphael up to all of this. And they were pissed. Because Raphael, with the assistance of the group, had actually flipped the script. Because they were supposed to either choose to accept the powers or kill Raphael, which would send those powers to the next available people who were of the bloodline. Which may have been the Prides or some other people. It's kind of up in the air who it really would have gone to. Because these powers were necessary since at the end of the day, Baphomet's plan was to try and cultivate heroes. And they've been causing chaos and mischief basically with Raphael to do so. And actually Molten Rose is a direct result of this because they had been basically cleaning up Raphael's messes and not realizing it. However, because they killed him with an arrow, one of these arrows, it actually freed these and made those powers disappear entirely. They're gone. And they're not going to be causing any more problems anymore. And because of this, the heirs were freed. She basically glared at them, called them nasty names, spat tar into Tomb's eyes, and then left. And with that, they freed the heirs from the coffin. Raphael came back to life. Why did he come back to life? He had a backup thing that was going to allow him to do that. He had basically was gambling, trying to break free of his contract with Baphomet, and with their help he did. And now, the heirs are free to basically wander around. Human Kingdom is in a shambles, and as I'm aware of it, the group had basically put the Prides in charge of things. They made their way back home, and now everyone's kind of figuring out what they're going to do and where they're going to go from here. As far as I'm aware, and this is just where we sort of left off, what's going to end up happening with the heirs, as far as I know, is Sister Mary and Sire Pride are actually going to head off to Sister Mary's hometown to go and save everybody from that town and hopefully put an end to the undead scourge there. Kyrie is going to stay at the guild and is going to try and actually become a secretary there, to try and assist in any way that they can, to try and help out in a way that they know how to. They can't really speak, they're not really good at fighting, they're not a warrior, but it'll also allow them to be closer to Tomb. And now the two of them get to figure out exactly what they're going to become. And I'm excited for that. That entire subplot of what appears to be a blooming romance. Mind you, Tomb and Kyrie wouldn't use the word romance, and neither would Snoo the player. But everyone else is just like, oh, it's cute. And I've been thinking about this because, holy shit, this was a wild adventure. This was a wild thing that I got to be involved with, you know? I don't think I have ever been in a situation where I was a part of someone else's adventure and basically doing a DLC for them. Like, I've never heard of that. I've heard of the concept of it for certain, but I myself have never seen it, like, go through, or at least go through well. And here we are with the completion of it. I'm not shooting my own horn. I'm shocked that this worked, and I'm shocked that it actually ended so well. It's kind of amazing. Yeah, I kind of like the purple. I'm going to add more details to it, but I think I kind of like the purple. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make his jacket purple, like a royal purple, you know, over here, because, you know, he's royalty. And his name is fucking Sire Pride, so I gotta flaunt that. But I'm gonna make his undercoat that he's got here a different color. Maybe like a darker color. And like, the circumstances and everything that led to this entire adventure even existing is fucking wild. Because I told them, when I felt the time was appropriate, exactly why I wanted to do this, and that was to destroy Human Kingdom because of what they did to Tomb. And that's also wild that I got away with it. That I got away with it so boldly, and just holy shit, you know? It's crazy. D&D is wild. And the stories and stuff that come with it are absolutely crazy. It's why I do love it. I'll admit, I'm kind of burnt out on tabletopping as a whole, which is wild for me to say when I'm going to be running a tabletop adventure for Trinky and Snoo and Karanzi here in like a week or two. But it's the truth. I'm kind of burnt out on tabletopping. I've kind of been burnt out for years. There's underlying reasons for it. One of which being that I've been doing it since I was like 6 or 8 years old, somewhere between those two ages. I've just been doing tabletopping since my dad brought me into his group a long time ago. And I have seen so much. I've done so much. And I am just kind of tired. While D&D is wonderful, and the things that you can do with it are great, at the end of the day, it's still a thing you have to deal with people. It's a story, or a collaborative story, that everyone together makes. You say what you're going to do, you roll the dice, things happen, and then you go from there. The DM is basically a storyteller. That's what it's all about. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen things go wrong at a table. I've been a part of things going wrong at a table. There have been arguments. There have been fights. There have been times that genuine feelings got hurt. I don't think people realize how much you pour yourselves into doing things and playing the game. Maybe that's just because we're so passionate about it. But there are times where someone will say something or do something in a campaign, and it will put one of us into a depression. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Ultimately, at the heart of this issue is somebody that we don't like to talk about. And there's good reason for it. We've mentioned it before, that there was another member of the Poor Chem crew who we no longer associate ourselves with, okay? And I'm still not going to really talk about him, but I am going to say that at the heart of this issue is that individual. Without a doubt, them and their decisions, their actions, and their stories caused such a ripple between our friend group that people were fighting. It almost felt like it was getting to the point that lines in the sand were being drawn. It's ridiculous, and it absolutely is, because at the end of the day, this is a fucking game. And I just got tired of it. I'm still tired of it. And while that individual is no longer associated with us, and we're really been trying to move on, the effects of his interactions with us and his deeds and his words are going to last probably forever. Even when we all eventually move on, whether individuals in our group have or not, I'm not the one to say. If that's their business. I know personally, I'm not there myself yet, but I'm trying to be. It's left a sour taste of this thing that I was passionate about that I've been trying to break out of. And I've been finding new and adventurous ways to be passionate about the game again. Doing things like this. Trying new things. For fuck's sakes, I think one of the best things was actually Cyberpunk. It had been a while since I had played a tabletop game that I had felt that burning passion that I felt when I was doing Cyberpunk stuff. That was absolutely wonderful and fantastic. But a part of me still feels tired. Exhausted. And if I'm being honest, there's always been a part of me that's wondered why I keep playing, if it's really having such an effect on myself. And it's because I think I'm still passionate about it. I love telling stories, and D&D is one of the greatest things when it comes to that sort of interactive media. There's nothing quite like playing tabletop. And so I'm probably never going to stop playing tabletop games. But I might be limiting myself to how much I do it and how much I put into it. Like, I feel fairly confident that the group's aware of it on some level. Because, for the most part, I haven't been participating in our D&D games. I've been choosing to opt out of it. I've been choosing to sit to the side, let everyone else play and have a good time. I pretty much, almost exclusively anymore, do DM things and am an assistant on the background to help along stuff. It's just what I feel is my current course of action on all of this. And I don't want this to sound like a bummer note, because, again, I still love it. For God's sakes, I'm going to be hosting a thing, getting some of my other new friends that I've made throughout streaming into D&D. And that's so cool. You have no idea how happy I am that I can do that. I love sharing my passions with people. And being able to do that through this medium, so that not only am I sharing it with them, but anybody who comes and watches the show. That I can't even quite put into words how happy that really does make me. But I guess I'm also at ends with myself. I'm just stressed about the idea and the subject. There's stuff in my life that I'm stressing about. There's a lot of uncertainties. I think everyone's in a similar boat with that. I wonder how this would look. Feels like gold. Kind of like, not that orange. It's like there's a particular, like, yellowish hue. Trying to get. Oh, that's the eraser too. No, that doesn't quite reach around. That's like Crayola gold. There we go. That's more of a goldish yellow. I don't know. There's like a faint difference between it, but it's a noticeable difference. At least it's a noticeable difference to me. Oops. You dumb boy. Look at him. Kick his ass. You're gonna get him? Yeah, Momo never did get a dueling. At some point. It's gonna be an interesting fight. But, I mean, you're gonna have to figure out some way to deal with his own abilities as well as his sword. Which now you're aware of the full capabilities of. You used his sword, for God's sake. It's gonna be a later thing. It's not a now thing. Alright, fair enough, fair enough. You know he's looking forward to it, right? He just wants to fight. This is a gap over here. He's so purple. Does he even remember? I thought they didn't remember their conversations. No, it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of duels. He's a swordsman, man. He wants to be able to fight. He likes fighting. Look at him. Look at that face. You tell me that this isn't the face of a man who's ready to throw down. Nothing makes me feel more alive than when I draw my blade. That's not him. That's me making a goofy reference to Sora's Wrath. Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. Thankfully, I caught that before it got bad. I need to make this bigger. One of my other favorite things that comes to D&D is something that I've come to appreciate later in life. It was definitely not something that I cared about while I was younger and still being introduced to the game as a whole. And that has been making powerful characters. Oh my god, do I love making powerful characters. This is a bad brown. This is a better brown. I was giving him like poop colored brown, and I don't want to put like poop on his leather thingies. It's a bad color. But like, I absolutely adore making powerful characters with powerful abilities. I love a good story, don't get me wrong. And in fact, the story is why I primarily play this. But there is a game underneath D&D, and it is a game that can be gamed. Holy shit, it can be gamed. The ways people have found to fuck with this thing is wild. Alright? And I love it. From doing things like summoning animals in the sky to drop them on people, to the villager railgun, to combinations of abilities together that just have ridiculous results. It's all wonderful. And I enjoy sitting behind it, looking at everything and being like, okay, what can I come up with? And I have been able to come up with some very, very fun things. My favorite thing being actually abusing the abilities of a sorcerer. Because, boy, sorcerers can do a lot. Sorcerers have some interesting balance issues, I should say. Because my thing is a lesser side effect of what other people have done with something called a coffee lock. So... God, how do I even begin to explain this? Just darken his colors over here. Oh, he looks great! Look at him! Look at him! I want to do some things with this. First thing is that I'm going to actually make this a little bit more pink. Just a little bit more. I was on there. Because it's supposed to be, I guess maybe a bit darker. Yeah, that looks better. Because it's supposed to be shaved, that part of his head. Then this needs to be a darker color. Oops. And then I think I want to give him like more gold accents, because I think purple and gold really go really well together. Ooh, he's got a giant broken part right over here with the color, so I'm gonna have to patch that up. Yeah. Give him these golden effects. I think I'm gonna make that sort of darker color. Or maybe if I made this also then a darker color, so that it kind of matches, maybe? I don't know. Maybe I'll just stick with the gold. Yeah, I think the gold is a much better choice. Alright. So, like, as a base, it's not bad. I'm going to take this, edit, inverse, edit, crop, boom. So now it's down to just him where he is. What other things have to be done? These buttons need to be the correct colors, and I guess I'll make them kind of silvery, metallic. Yeah. There we go. He's got buttons. And then these bits need to be this. These are studs. And these are studs. And then these are buckles. And then these are studs. Maybe too big on that one. Anything else? These guys down here. More buckles. Alright. Sire fucking Pride. I really do like him. I like, as Stu and I were talking about him earlier today, and we were talking about how he is a crouching tiger, hidden weeaboo, and I love that as a concept. I love him as like, just as a blanket statement of he is the bastard heir to a kingdom that he doesn't even know about. I think that's fantastic. I think he looks cool as fuck. And without really shading and giving into the details, I'm going to save it here. Since I have been ranting for like 2 hours. And I wasn't really going to stream today, but, well, some things came up. And as you can see, I still have more work to do. Because I've got to get all of this, like, golden out over here. I think I'll make the inside of it purple. I think that'll be fine, but, like, the edges of his sleeve here definitely had to be. I was going for samurai and, like, oriental look, but, like a hybrid of the East and the West as far as nobility and stuff goes. Because that's kind of what he is. He is this mixed bag of things on top of, like, supposing to be a mixed race. Since he is a half human, half dark elf. Though you wouldn't really be able to tell from looking at him because he takes more after his dark elf heritage. Technically speaking, that means he takes more after his mom than he does his dad, because his dad is the filthy human king, the human kingdom. Though that's not really the case anymore because that guy's dead. Congratulations, my boy. And then I'm gonna make these cuffs, or where his jacket's all rolled up, and make it darker. Oh no, I got this giant blue stain on his leather. Oh, no, we're correcting that. And I guess technically speaking that would be yellow over here. Yeah, fix that. Fix that a little bit. There's a couple of lines that are bothering me, but, like, it's whatever. Deal with it another time. The inside of this a darker color.
Crab, please. Crab, scan, crab, frighten, crab,
and crab. Gotta say, I do appreciate everybody not doing those while I was telling the stories and stuff like that. Very appreciative, actually. Thank you for waiting till I was actually done. Yeah. Look at him. Ooh, a new question just popped up into my head. I'm gonna see what it would look like and if I can even manage to pull it off. But, like, the faintest of black fingernails. Well, you think I have good timing? I just started watching and hit the button. Ah, I see. I was spared because you weren't here, is what you're telling me. I think he looks good with black fingernails, but, like, they've got to be the right black. Yeah. Look at him go. A little bit of a light shine here. Because fingernails are reflective. Now it looks like he paints his nails, but, you know, whatever. Look at him. Look at him. It's great. I wonder what it would look like if I was to give him some hair fuzz over here. Oh, that looks a lot better. That looks a lot better. Holy shit. I should have done this from the get-go. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Save. Let's not have tragedy strike tonight. Thank you very much. And I think I want to call it from there. Just because, well, I don't really know what else. Oh, I got messages here. Ah, I see. I see. I just noticed I got messages from people. Bubble smashed his fingers in the doorway. It's not nail polished. Shh. Smashed. These bits of door in his finger. Alright. Yeah. So I think I'm going to call it there. I've got more things I got to work on, more stuff I got to do on the side. Technically speaking, I've had campaign spoilers for the stuff I'm going to be doing with the group on the side right here. Though I'm not going to explain what this is, because it'll come up while we are doing the streamer campaign. But anywho, I want to thank everybody who came out tonight. I do appreciate everybody coming in to listen to me talking about my stuff while I do some drawing. It does mean a lot to me. Let's see here. Maybe I'll stream tomorrow, maybe I won't. I know that I really want to finish Fallout 3 before the end of the month. I really only have like this week left to do it. So maybe I'll go harder on that. But anywho, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I hope you all stay safe, stay hydrated, and remember to wash your hands. Let's see if there's anybody who's available right now for me to raid. There is! I got a friend who's playing some Hollow Knight. Let's go over there and say hello. Alright, Mopon. Looks like he's in seal mode right now. Right on. Anywho, let's go over there, let's say hi to him. I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Bye-bye!